Fellas, on today's video I wanted to give something relatively cursed a go, and I am aware that I throw that word from time to time without much meaning unless it is to describe rather wacky build ideas that work with relative decency. Well, today is no exception as we are using Consecrated Path on a 7-link terminus as a chieftain. And let me begin by telling you that this is in no way, shape or form going to blow your socks off in the mapping department. I know I often leave that one to the side as long as the single target is thick. And in today's case, oh boy, you have no idea.
Will be endless.
Crush the intruder!
Yeah, we are delivering the Consecrated Deedly to Sirius, Maven and 3/4 of a Cortex alongside some metamorphs here and there, and other stuff, as it's tradition. However, I do want you to keep in mind that unlike the Holopalm Raider from last video, this one does require currency invested into it. Though I got away with some things, since I already had gear that lent itself to be reused, but do expect to spend some exiles on this. Having said that, we are using Consecrated Path as our do everything skill, and while it isn't precisely a carbon copy of Flicker Strike, it still behaves erratically from time to time, which can and will put us into precarious situations. So certain things like Maven's fight, for example, have an added layer of difficulty thanks to Consecrated Path's targeting. That doesn't mean that it's undoable, as you'll see that this guy has it covered, but what I'm gonna get to is that you may break 1 or 2 attempts getting the hang of this during that fight, especially when you teleport into that beam. So with all of that said, hey, if you are new around here, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, a rating and a comment are always appreciated. Anyways, let's build ourselves a rather cursed alternative to Flicker Strike. Alright fellas, it's time. First thing is the weapon, a 7-link terminus because it has fortify support as a corrupted implicit. The higher the crit chance on physical DPS, the better. I offer no alternative here because we are building off the frenzy charge on crit and high crit chance on the weapon as well, so yeah. The next thing is a body armor that is relatively thick. We've got an Awakener Orb Astral Plate with enemy skilled explode, you can cast an additional curse, attack crit chance and power charges on crit. However, you should totally chase more life and resists if possible on yours. And to craft this one, you're gonna require Harvest, because we are gonna slam together the exploding modifier with attack crit chance and then use Harvest to remove the unwanted modifiers while also slamming the good stuff, like the curse or power charge generation. Moving on to the helmet, it is the good old crown of the Inward Eye with Ancestral Protector attack speed as the enchantment, but if you cannot find that one, you can use Blood and Sand effect, Blood Rage attack speed or Consecrated Path damage. But in the end, the Ancestral Protector one is gonna be the best one as it's going to synergize with Panopticon, which we anoint, and the Ascendancy choices. Since we touched on the anoint, the amulet is an intelligence base with life, resistances, elemental damage with attack skills and crit multi. We also benchcraft mana cost of skills on it. One of the rings has flammability on hit alongside crit multi, resistances, life and more reduced mana cost of skills crafted on it. The other ring has onslaught on hit as the implicit alongside life, intelligence and any damage that you can cram into it. I wanted to use Essences of Hysteria to craft it, but RNG wasn't cooperating, so Essences of Contempt had to suffice. We also benchcraft an endurance charge on it or slam chaos resistance through Harvest. The belt has triple resistances, life and elemental damage with attack skills. If you are gonna use a Warlord belt, fire damage or increased damage are way better than fire against the burning enemies. The jewel on the belt has life, intelligence and damage mods for sword attacks, though if you can get crit multi or fizz as extra fire on a crit, that will be great. The gloves are the hands of the High Templar with a maximum frenzy and elemental weakness on hit. These guys are the whole reason we use an extra curse on the body armor. Another option are spiked gloves with an additional frenzy, life, resistances and maybe other damage mods, but the cheaper option are gonna be these trolley corruption gloves. And the boots have life, movement speed, fizz as extra fire and resistances. Also elemental penetration as an enchantment if you can. For flasks, a Lion's Roar, a Wise Oak and either Bottle Faith, a Series Promise or a Sulfur Flask. Now before we jump into the skill tree, this is the first build this league that I did not cram element avoidance into. So we do require freeze avoidance at least on one flask. This translates into mapping with relative care rather than tackling most stuff carelessly. I'd tried to make the element avoidance work with this build, but it simply wasn't gonna fly. Too much DPS lost and life lost, so in the end it wasn't a good choice. Also, yes, this is a bit expensive. Do expect having to use Harvest and spending Exiles making things work. And as always, Chaos Resistance is a necessity nowadays, so no skipping that one. So with that said, let's talk about the skill tree. Alright, so this is a level 95 Chieftain. It is in fact my Berserker League starter turned into this build, though you should be able to easily level with this character once you can equip Consecrated Path. We side with Alira for crit multi and resistances, and for Pantheons you all know my choices, Shakari and Solaris, as almost always really. For the Ascendancy we are taking Namahu Flames Advance, Tasalio Cleansing Water, Hinekora Death's Fury, and Tukohama War's Herald. And we do so in that order, especially if you are leveling this from 0 to 95. However, we take that specific order to get the 50% fire conversion first, an extra fire buff, fire resistance, life leech and ash, and finally the super beefed up totems for big DPS slaps. So for the tree itself, we are gonna begin by pushing towards stun immunity, taking life and crit chance on the way. From there, we are gonna take life and mana cost, melee crit, and we rush towards the ranger area, grabbing life, sword stuff, fortify stuff, more sword stuff and melee crit, life, more life, two-hander crit chance and crit multi, even more life, more sword crit, more general crit chance, and we stop on the frenzy charge. Then we go back to the duelist area, grabbing the other frenzy, and we make our way towards the two-hander stuff, the accuracy and attack speed and life. After that is done, we wrap up by taking fire penetration, sword stuff, and jewel sockets, alongside iron grip, which is gonna get turned into chainbreaker thanks to a lethal pride. Now, as always, we are using the rage that chainbreaker generates for single target purposes, specifically triggering berserk. This precise spot that I've taken for the lethal pride has a lot of benefits. We've got 6 notables in range, which can get useful extra goodies from the lethal pride. Things like melee crit chance or crit multi, melee damage, fist as extra fire, fortify effect, increased maximum life, chance to deal double damage, etc. So make sure that you get useful stuff when you socket the lethal pride in this area. One jewel is a Watcher's Eye with fire damage with anger and attack speed with precision, though Fist as extra fire with anger is a better play, so maybe chase that one with precision's attack speed. And the last jewel is a regular jewel with increased maximum life, crit multi and intelligence. But that is it for the skill tree. We are not doing anything too fancy this time around, and while the tree happens to do some touristic route, it is pretty self-contained, at least in my opinion. So let's wrap up this build with the gem setups. In the weapon, Anomalous Consecrated Path, Elemental Focus, Inspiration Close Combat, Woke Elemental Damage with attack skills, and Woke Melee Fist damage. These last two are kinda mandatory, especially Woke Melee Fist for the chance to intimidate on hit. And yes, Anomalous Consecrated Path does a smaller slam, and especially when you realize that we also use Blood and Sand, but we are one-tapping most crap in the game, so it isn't so bad. Now, the other thing that doesn't make much sense is Close Combat, as it seems kinda stupid on an area of effect skill, but Consecrated Path does more damage against closer targets, like Ground Slam. This is why Close Combat makes sense, though it is also here because it is pretty difficult to roll a 5 red 1 blue socket Terminus, especially when it's corrupted, so in the end it all works out, I think. Anyways, in the body armor, Precision, Blood and Sand, Anger and Herald of Purity, while also having all of them linked to Enlighten, Enlighten 4 if possible. In the boots, Berserk, Flame Dash and Ice Golem, with all of them linked to Blood Magic. In the gloves, Ancestral Protector, Val Ancestral Warchief and Wave of Conviction, with the 3 of them linked to Combustion. And as I've said previously in the last video and in the past, you can have the Val Warchief alongside the Protector without having an extra totem source. But if you cast the regular Warchief alongside a Protector, the Protector is gonna get overwritten. We only use the Val Warchief for single target, so don't worry too much about him. Finally, in the helmet, Blood Rage and a Portal Gem. And with all of that out of the way, let's conclude this weird-ass successful experiment. It really hits hard, like when you have every buff available to us active, things just say peace and disappear. You've seen that throughout the video, it really has respectable DPS. But just like I said in the beginning, the mapping is not going to surprise you. Consecrated Path, while it hits hard with this build, is also kinda slow. especially once you consider that multi-strike does not work with it. This is the main reason as to why we use Anomalous Consecrated Path instead of the normie version, because we really need that extra speed. Again, we are not elemental element immune, save for Ignite, to which we are unaffected by since we took Tassalio on the Ascendancy, so Shock and Freeze are things to watch out for, but since we one-tap most crap, they tend to not be too much of a problem. This build has room for more damage though. A better Abyss Jewel, better rolls on the gear, better notables on the Lethal Pride, a better Watcher's Eye. They all may seem like more Exile spending, but they also allow this guy to go even higher. So at the end of the day, if you can do it, I see no reason as to why you shouldn't try. After all, who doesn't enjoy shortening the spotlight of enemies on your screen? But yeah, that's gonna be it for this build. The next video is going to be later this week. I am leaning heavily into the challenge guide video, but we'll see. I'm still battling laziness combined with burnout, so things are still up in the air. And with that said, thank you so much for watching tonight's content. Don't forget to subscribe if you got to this point in the video. Take care, have a nice start to your week, and peace out.
The prize piece comes to join
My collection.
Stand still. A cascade of pain. Stand still.
Pain will be returned tenfold. Space aligns. Behold my collection.
I will have what I want. This will not be an escape. Scurry, scurry. A cascade of pain. Stand still. A cascade of pain. Stand still. A cascade of pain.
Death made real.
Why?
Resistance will be punished. Time contorts. Scurry. Scurry.
My irritation is growing. Do what I say. This will not be an escape. Scurry, scurry. Do what I say. Stand still.
Death made real.
A cascade of pain. Do what I say. How?
Stop resisting. Reality bends. Punishment inescapable.
Arrogant toy. This will not be an escape. Scurry, scurry.